Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our On Point podcast. I'm Mark McKee, the head of Viewpoint School, and today we are going behind the curtain with the chair of our music department and two of our instrumental music teachers. We're going to unpack the magic in our music classrooms and talk about how music education propels our mission, vision, and values at Viewpoint. This is the second of two episodes on our music program. I encourage you to tune back into the first one we did, focused on choral music. Today I'm here with Kristin Herkstroeter, our music department chair, and we're joined by Kim Gonzalez and Greg Zilboorg, two of our instrumental music teachers, fresh off of last week's 5th through 12th grade strings concert and preparing for next week's 6th through 12th grade band concert on March 18th. This may, in fact, be dropping before March 18th, so this will be a great pre-concert listen, and hopefully we'll encourage you to attend. So let's first let our listeners go behind the curtain with us and bring to life the preparation that goes into these concerts that we're experiencing, that we present each fall and each spring. Our 5th through 12th grade students certainly illuminated the stage last week, and we filled Carlson Family Theater with joyful music. Kim, let's start with you. Can you tell us how you prepare for music concerts each season and what the path is to showtime for your students?
Well, I think that it really starts with choosing what you're going to play for each concert. And that depends on the instrumentation that you have, depends on the skill level of different instruments within the band, and really choosing music that is going to inspire the students, that they're going to enjoy playing, that maybe is something they wouldn't normally play, would have never heard before. But in playing it and performing it, they learn to love it and enjoy it. So that starts in the summer, really. You start planning and thinking about and looking at what you have. And then coming up to the concert, it's really about individual responsibility of the students. They each need to learn their part. It really is a team. And if one person doesn't learn their part and plays it poorly, it affects the rest of the ensemble. So really emphasizing that in the weeks leading up to the performances is important during rehearsals, and checking in with students who are maybe struggling with parts and trying to get them inspired. And then the day of the concert is usually you just relax into it, right? The students show up, they're excited and ready to perform, and you have the plan and you just kind of let it roll out at that point. So it's all about expressing something to the audience. That really is the end game, because that is part of the core of what music is valuable for, is expressing something and communicating with the audience.
So what's a piece that we'll hear next week that, if you go back to last summer, I mean, I think it would surprise some of us to think about that. So what's a piece last summer that you chose that you're excited for us to hear next week?
Arabian Dances, written by Brian Balmages, and it's just a really exciting piece. It has a huge percussion section in the middle. So it's really, really beautiful, and the students really enjoy playing it. So
that's awesome. Think about that. Whether it's Arabian Dances or something or another piece, aside from learning the music and how to come on stage, off stage, you know, the technique of performing, what do your instrumentalists discover along the way?
In a performance?
Yeah, in the whole process of preparing for the performance, yeah.
I think that they learn that making mistakes is okay, that through the process you're going to make mistakes, but that you can learn from them and improve upon them. I think they learn confidence, because if you come on stage with confidence, you're going to be more likely to perform well. And I've told them that. And in fact, our clinician in Chicago mentioned that, I want you to play confidently if you just play with confidence. And I think that is something they take away, is the confidence of a performance well done, and knowing that, 2 months ago I couldn't play this music and now I just performed it. So.
Greg, what are some of the ways your students get ready for their concert performances?
I think I agree with a lot of stuff Kim said. For me, when I think about those final weeks leading up to the concert, it's all about getting comfortable with things. It's like music is about expression. And so like early in the process, students might be focused on the nuts and bolts of how does this go? How's it supposed to sound? How do I do this? And by the time, the concert's closer, I think you want them a little bit more tuned in with how is this supposed to feel? How do I want to feel when I'm playing it? What am I trying to like share with my audience? And so, like, yeah, at this stage in the game, I feel like when I go to rehearsal, ideally, the kids are sounding pretty good on things already. They already know what's there. Every now and then they sneak one by me, and it's like very close to the performance. I'm like, that's not right. You got to fix that. But by and large, it's that process of kind of transferring the ownership from me to them. Where in the beginning, I'm like, here are the tunes. Here's what you got to do. Tune, warm up, all this stuff. And at the end, the week before performance, I would like to ask them after a run through, what do you guys think? What does that need? And especially with the older groups, like the upper school jazz group, I expect them to be able to identify what's working, what's not, what they need, and to essentially kind of run rehearsal with me not really lending too much of a heavy hand on it.
Yeah, you direct the jazz groups, and that's something that's different about conducting or directing a jazz ensemble, right? Is sometimes when we're watching the concert, we see you kind of walk away to the side.
That's the best. Yeah, I think my ultimate goal is to someday direct a jazz band and bring a folding chair out onto the stage and just like count them off and then just like sit down. Like if I can do that, then I feel like I did my job.
Which is very, very different, Kristin, from your job.
Yes.
I have yet to see you walk away from the podium. Greg, tell us about a piece that we're going to hear next week that you're excited about.
Oh, man. I'm really excited to play a piece by the Nigerian composer and band leader Fela Kuti called Dog Eat Dog. I got really excited about Fela Kuti. God, when was the Afrobeat craze? Like early 20-teens, maybe. I was in grad school. I had a chance to study some traditional African music at the California Institute of the Arts. It was just like a very special time, like formative time for me as a musician. And I hadn't touched it for a while. And I have a situation in the jazz group right now where I have so many great drummers. And so the puzzle that I've had to solve is, what do you do with so many great drummers when normally you only have one at a time? And so I've dug into a lot of like West African and Afro-Cuban music where there are roles for like this multi-layered percussion thing going on. And so I kind of dug back into like my own past and some of my own experience and took some music that was special for me. I could not find anybody arranging this type of music for high school groups, so I had to take a stab at doing it myself. And
Wow.
The kids really like ran off with it and are making it their own, and it's been a really fun process.
I love that. I'm going to be listening for this and thinking about the fact that your journey with this music is a decade ago when these musicians were 6.
I had not thought about that. That's wild.
And they weren't thinking about you and what you were learning at the time and how
Totally.
it resulted in this concert.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And Kristin, we're just off of the strings concert. I enjoyed it so much last week. Maybe the same question. What was a piece that we heard last week that would say something about that journey from preparation to performance?
Last week feels so long ago. I think, Rosin Eating Zombies from Outer Space is always a huge hit. And so I try to let every middle schooler experience that because there are lots of requests to do it. What the kids don't realize is that it's a great educational piece and that they're learning a lot by playing it. But it's that piece they're so excited to play, and they get to make crazy sounds on their string instruments with permission from their teacher, instead of me telling them, please don't do that.
This is the piece with screeching and screaming. And
Yeah. So I think that's always a really fun piece, but there's that educational component that's thrown in there and that they don't realize. And that's the most fun thing. If they can learn something without really realizing it, where the excitement of the piece gets them excited to practice. And as we look for curricularly, as we look for pieces, we are walking that fine line between what can they play, how far can we push them, what pieces can we put together so that the kids get a good experience? Because we don't want to play like 3 pieces that are really similar. We want to give them different experiences, expose them to different styles of music, because different styles of music speak to different kids. We did La La Land in upper school, which a lot of students were very excited to play music from a film.
It was lyrical and kind of lovely.
Yes, and it's a beautiful string orchestra arrangement. At the same time, they have to play Bach. As a string player, you have to play Bach. And so we did some Brandenburg.
I was very impressed. There was a Brandenburg. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some things that they all need to experience, but really there's that fine line. If you program something that's too hard, it's not going to sound good. They're not going to feel good about themselves. If it's too easy, they're going to get bored. But you want to push them, but just the right amount.
Wow. And thinking about the strings concert, of course, it culminates, I think, every year.
Yes.
And all of our string players from 5th through 12th grade surrounding the audience in the Carlson Family Theater. And once again, last week, I took out my phone and had to take a video of this because I kind of pinched myself. I can't believe what I'm witnessing in terms of just the scale of our music program.
Yeah. And that's a really fun thing to do. It's a little scary for the 5th graders to be maybe standing next to some upper schoolers. But it's such a great experience for all the basses to see, oh, there are actually 6, 7 basses at this school. They might be alone in class, but for them to understand that there's a community of students. The cellos, I mean, the whole stage was full of cellos. And even though I do have a lot of cellos in middle school currently, some of the other classes are smaller. So it's really nice for the kids to see that, oh, there's other kids that play my instrument. I'm not all alone.
It really is a gift to have such a music program at our school, and I never take it for granted. I've been attending our concerts for a decade now, and I literally feel the magic every time. But I know it's not magic, and one of the purposes of this podcast series is, in fact, to get behind that, and for people who come and appreciate the performance to understand what's behind it. Some of the things you're talking about, the fact that you're choosing curriculum, you are trained teachers, so there's pedagogy. Let's dig a little bit deeper in music education in that journey from TK through 12. Kristin, you've said a little bit about this. Can you say how the choices you make in music curriculum, result in a day in the life of your classroom?
Well, the curriculum really drives what I'm focusing on. So when I'm choosing the curriculum, the first thing is if I don't like the piece, we're not doing it. That is the absolute first thing, because I need to convince the students that this piece is worth learning. And if I'm not convinced, it's not going to work. So when I'm listening to pieces, if I don't like it, I don't even look up the title. Usually I have just some music going on in the background. If it doesn't catch my attention, we're not doing it. If a piece catches my attention, I'll write it down. I usually do this over the summer. And then at the end of the summer, I will re-listen to all the pieces that caught my attention. And then I start looking at them more seriously. Like, what does this actually focus on? What could the students learn? Sometimes I realize there's not that much to learn, so we're not going to do that piece. And as Kim mentioned before, we also need to look at who is in our class. Do we have particularly strong section? Do we have a particularly weak section? The weak section, of course, we want to support them, but they can only be pushed so far. A strong section, we don't want them to be bored. So it's, every year is a little different. So you might find that perfect piece for your 6th graders, and then the following year you like, oh, that'd be great. Oh, that's not going to work with this group. So we're continually revising the curriculum. Once we've made the curricular choices, it's up to us to plan our rehearsals so we get through the whole piece. So if there's a challenging section, we spend time on it, but not too much time, because if, there's only so far you can push a 13-year-old. They're only going to focus for so long on something that's hard. So we also need to teach the kids how to practice. A lot of kids think that we're just going to start at the beginning and just go to the end every time. That's not practicing, that's playing through a piece. And teaching kids how to take what's hard for them and focus on that. And I'm going to do a little bit every day, and that's how I'm going to get better at it. If something's hard, you're not just going to learn it by playing it 5 times. You have to figure out what technique are you not getting or need more support on. And sometimes that means we need to do some technical exercises. away from the piece, or rhythmic exercises. And then, hey, remember that scale we did with that rhythm? Do you see that rhythm in your piece? Okay, now let's play that rhythm in your piece. So we're almost tricking the kids into learning different aspects, but then kind of layering so that everything's put together. But our rehearsals are very intentional. We want to use our time very wisely. We, of course, wish we had more time with the students. So our time is precious, and we need to be really thoughtful about how we use that time, at the same time remembering that, the bulk of our kids are in middle school. Focusing for 65 minutes is really hard for them. And so we need to alter, we can't do the same thing for the whole 65 minutes, even if we really want to nail something down. We need to change our focus throughout the class to keep the kids engaged.
And when you say something to learn, what's one example of like this piece presents something to learn?
Yesterday, I gave my middle school orchestra a new piece. It focuses on third position for violin and viola, fourth position for cello. And that is a big skill that my 7th and 8th graders have to learn before they get to upper school. Some of them will fight against it because they could potentially play parts in first position, but then they're not learning what they need to learn.
Got it. Now, and Greg, Kim, like how do you answer the same question? Like think about the curricular choices you make and how it lands in a day in your classroom.
Well, I think definitely everything Kristin said applies to us as well, as far as how our classes are planned. But I think I also would like to bring in our world-ready mindset here at Viewpoint and to introduce our students to multiple varieties of cultural music. Like the middle school concert band will be playing a piece called Bossa Brasil, which is a bossa nova. And so it's a style that is good for them to learn and to understand, that comes from a different culture and that it's part of, the styles of music that you're going to learn. And one thing that I'll mention that Greg is very good at is the Cheeseburger Cha-Cha Challenge.
Oh, yeah.
If you'll talk about that.
Sure.
What's that?
So we're playing a tune in 6th grade band right now called Cheeseburger Cha-Cha-Cha. I don't know why it's called that. But it's this sort of, it's a cha-cha tune. So it's like this salsa Cuban kind of thing. And something I noticed as we were learning it is there were certain phrases, particularly in the flute and saxophone parts, that were rough. They were pretty challenging. Those players were having a harder time learning these particular phrases than some of the other players were learning the different material. And so I made this thing that I call them a musical jumpstart, because I've seen certain composers do this with pieces that they publish, where they will take the melody or the bass line or some like essential piece of the tune and make sure that everybody has that music written out at the bottom of their piece so that everybody can play the melody, which, trombone players don't always get to play the melody. So it's like a nice touch to, make sure they can play something cute and cool for their parents, no matter what happens. And so I created something called the Cheeseburger Cha-Cha Challenge, which was all the hardest licks in the flute and the saxophone part transposed for everybody's instrument. And that's been our homework for like 3 weeks in that classes. Every week we focus on one more section of it. And instead of, putting the class to sleep while I focus on 15% of the students nailing down this one thing, we all just learn it together. And sure enough, when it pops up in the music, those students are doing a lot better with it. And the other students, even the ones that don't perform it, it was still a great challenge. Their facility is like much improved. And I think it was all very worthwhile.
Who has the hardest time with a flute or saxophone lick?
I think generally for students that young, flute's got to be the hardest. There's, addition to having...
Who doesn't get it?
Oh,
yes. No.
Yeah. It's like, you have to like balance the flute, and it's just awkward.
Yeah.
It's awkward. I think the clarinets have a hard time too, where there's like a register change that is very hard for second year students.
Yes. Okay.
That I'm just really doing it to death with them on that register change right now. But it's good because, the material they're performing doesn't have to be that hard. They're getting a chance to work it. And then when I think about where we would like to have them for our 7th and 8th grade classes, it pleases me to know that they've been challenged by this. They understand the issues and they've had a chance to practice it before.
And it's presented a challenge of multiple accidentals. So instead of an F sharp, you're playing an F natural, or instead of a B natural, you're playing a B flat. So they're learning fingerings that not often you learn in 6th grade.
Yeah.
And it's repeated in the music, and it's used in the music so that when they come into 7th and 8th grade, it means I have access to picking harder pieces because they've already learned those notes, so they're coming in with more knowledge.
Yeah, for me,
which
that's
is
a
great.
Big part of the second, maybe like definitely 3rd trimester, maybe a little bit of 2nd trimester, 6th grade is flats and sharps all day for those kids, and just kind of put them through the ringer on it so that they've encountered it before as they move on.
Yeah.
When I see the performances of our upper school musicians, I often reflect that I could be at a school that is dedicated to the performing arts. That these are students who are music students, as opposed to students who are at a comprehensive school. And they get there through our programs. And, our listeners may be parents with young children. I know our youngest students have access to strings and Suzuki from an early age. At a certain point, everyone takes an instrument. Can you walk us through the student's journey from TK through 12 when they get access to your programs in instrumental music?
Well, really, it starts in TK with general music, because all the students they're singing. They have some experience with some of the percussion instruments that are appropriate to a TK student. And we just kind of progress from there. Every year, their musical experiences expand, whether they join our Suzuki program in 1st grade, the traditional strings in 3rd grade. If they don't, they're still getting the general music experience. They play recorder in lower school, and then in 5th grade, everyone plays an instrument. And some people have said, well, why are you doing that? Well, like anything, students aren't going to know if they love something if they're never given the opportunity to try it. And I've talked to some alums who said, yeah, I never really wanted to play an instrument in 5th grade, but then I did, and oh my goodness, I fell in love with it. And that's really our reasoning behind why everyone is playing an instrument in 5th grade. In 6th grade, students choose to either continue their instrument, join the choir, or if students are new to the school and they haven't had the opportunity to try an instrument, we still have that opportunity for them in 6th and 7th grade.
And we see that in all your concerts, the 6th grade beginners.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then, starting in 7th grade, music becomes an elective. Because like anything, sometimes something speaks to students, sometimes it doesn't speak to them. But really in 7th grade, those students start becoming more serious about their instrument or their vocal studies. And that's really where we start to hammer down, these are the techniques you need to learn to eventually be successful in the upper school. And it's really about scaffolding. And our curriculum is circular. It's kind of like learning how to read. You don't finish with the word the and never use it again, or the word and. But as you obviously get more advanced, you're going to use bigger vocabulary. You're going to use your vocabulary differently. And that's the same thing with music. You're going to continue to play the notes. Sometimes you run into easy passages in your music. I tell the students, even the LA fills, sometimes they have a piece with just whole notes where they're accompanying someone, and the music is easy. But they need to play it beautifully. And you're going to play something very differently when you are a 12th grader, as opposed to playing the same music in 1st grade. The expectations are really different. So we're constantly scaffolding, reteaching, adding, okay, now you did this, now we're going to add something to that. So that as the students progress, you never finish with a piece in music. You never totally master a piece. You get to a certain point, but if you came back and played it 5 years later, it's going to be different. Your message is going to be different. The way the music, what the music means to you is going to be different. So that's also something that we're trying to teach the students.
Of course, I'm partial. As an educator, I know that if you even go all the way back to the Middle Ages, and when you had the trivium and the quadrivium, the classic medieval curriculum, music was an essential piece of the classic curriculum. And so to me, it is actually distinctive at Viewpoint that we have such a commitment to music, that everyone is a musician until they begin to choose as an elective. And I know I didn't have access to instrumental music until I was in fourth grade for strings or sixth grade for winds. And so it's good that we provide our students that. And then it results in how much music is a part of all of our lives. I think everyone understands how music's a part of their life, but in our school life too. So we have a pep band for sports. These concerts, again, I feel very privileged to be able to attend our students' musical concerts. I think about our Arts Fest and a signature TK through 12 community event we host at the end of the school year. I think it was actually this department's initiative, because we had so many spring concerts that we put them all in one place on one day and celebrate our music, film, art, theater, and dance programs, all of them. How far in advance do you start planning the Arts Fest? And is there anything we could expect this year?
I mean, really, the planning starts the day after the previous Arts Fest. I'm continually thinking about what went well. What do we need to change to make it better? I'm always open to a lot of feedback because I do want to make it better. I want to make it a better experience for the students, for the families, and also for the teachers, to make it manageable, because it is a pretty crazy day for us as teachers. I think over the summer, I know I'm looking for curriculum for music. The actual sitting down and planning the day of the event, I will start that after spring break. I can't really start it earlier because I need to get information from all my colleagues on how long does the Jazz Lab need to perform their pieces. And those questions are really hard to answer if you don't know what the Jazz Lab is going to be performing. So after spring break, I will start putting together the schedule, which is kind of a massive undertaking because we have some students who are in 8 groups. And so I really need to schedule around those students in multiple groups who are running from one event to another.
You might have one student who's going to perform with 8 different groups in the scope of that day.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and I need to know who those students are.
I do see them running around on that day.
Yes. Yes. So I need to know who those students are, and I need to plan it around them. But then I need to look at the student who's in 5 events and make sure that they still can get to all their events. So it's pretty tricky to schedule. Something I know in the strings that we're going to be doing new this year, I found a piece that we're going to have 5th through 7th grade playing together, which we have not done before. But I think it'll give the 7th graders a chance to shine, and a great experience for especially the 5th graders to play with the 6th and 7th graders. So it's a day that gives us a little bit of flexibility to pull some groups together. Sometimes that's difficult in the theater because of the stage size and also just getting into the theater for a dress rehearsal. But Arts Fest is a little bit more flexible. It's a little more casual, which is also a great experience for the students because not every concert is super formal. There are lots of places where musicians play where it's a more casual event. And I think it's important that our students experience that. And also for the audience, a lot of the concerts are a little bit shorter at the Arts Fest. So maybe a 3-year-old sibling can sit through the 10-minute performance, whereas taking that sibling to the 5th through 12th grade concert that's in the evening is going to be a lot more challenging, especially as we get past the 3-year-old's bedtime.
It really feels to me that day like any music festival that's happening with multiple stages, multiple groups. I know I can't get to everything I want to see as an audience member on that day. It's actually not possible. I hadn't realized that you have to solve for each individual Viewpoint student to make sure that they can be where they need to be. What, Greg, Kim, what does it mean to each of you to be part of this school in terms of the scope of its commitment to music?
I think it's a really special opportunity because as a band teacher, band is about bringing multiple people together. Like, imagine if you had a musician who was learning to sing and play the guitar or to play piano. Like, that's a student that can finish work and present it like in a solo capacity. And when we're talking about wind and percussion instruments, we just don't work that way. Like, the teamwork is an essential part of what the medium does. And so you cannot do what we do unless there is a larger context to work in. It's just impossible. And so to have one that is like so robust to make sure that we get like a point of contact in the 5th and 6th grade with everybody and get a chance to show them what we do and try to persuade them that it's special and worthwhile, and to get to work with those students all the way through their senior year of high school is pretty unique, and it's definitely something I don't take for granted.
It makes graduations very hard.
Word.
Every year.
Oh,
it's so sad because you've known these students since 5th grade or 2nd grade or first grade.
Yeah.
And so you've watched them grow and seen their experience through their entire time at Viewpoint. And so it makes graduation really, really special.
And of course, if you haven't been to a Viewpoint graduation, we actually give the music department some pride of place. And of course, music adds to any important ceremony, but it's the students who provide the music.
Right.
And we hear from our students, especially our seniors, for whom, in their cap and gown, it is their last time performing at Viewpoint, and very, very special.
Yeah.
Wow. As you can see, like, I'm excited by what our students accomplish. And I really feel like we deliver on our mission. Our promise is to cultivate the critical skill set, courageous mindset, and resilient identity of each individual Viewpoint student. How does music and musical performance play a role in delivering on that world-ready promise?
Well, I think, like I mentioned before, the process of learning to perform something and then performing it, it's a very personal experience. And you have to build the confidence to be able to stand in front of a large audience and perform something that you know you've worked on. You know you might make a mistake, but you're going to risk it because you're going to do it because you have the confidence to be up there and do it. And you have something to say musically. So I think that prepares students for that confidence in whatever career they're going to choose. And it also... I think that the most successful people in any field are the ones who are creative thinkers. And this taps right into that. This really emphasizes their creativity and their creative mind and forces them really to develop that creativity and to use it and then to express it to an audience. And that, of course, is going to just help them immensely in any field that they choose to go into.
I would also like to add, with the resilient identity, anytime you're performing in front of people, you know, there's that chance you make a mistake. Well, how are you going to handle it when you make a mistake? I can safely assume we have all performed and made a mistake.
Yes.
I actually never have.
Just
They tell me that it's
pretty
really
amazing.
yeah.
So
It's really hard.
They tell me it's very
one day you
painful and
will.
scary to make a mistake, but I don't know what that's about.
But really, you know, you make a mistake and you go on, and your goal is that the audience doesn't realize you made a mistake.
Oh, yeah.
And if you do it correctly, they don't realize it. And it's kind of that secret, but it's also that helps build your confidence for the next time. Or if you're standing in front of a group of people and speaking and you made a mistake, it just, hey, I just misspoke, but now I'm just going to move on. We're just going to get past it. We're not going to just think about, oh my gosh, I just misspoke. And then the rest of the presentation just falls apart. And those are really important life lessons that we're helping our students learn.
Yeah. I think the teamwork aspect is something I see a lot in it too, where, as you guys have mentioned, we get just sort of like a variety, I don't want to say ability levels, but maybe just like experience and commitment levels within the ensembles, where you have a certain amount of each group is just like die hard, very serious musicians, people who are practicing, they know they want to keep doing it, they might even major in it or try to make a career in it. And you also have people who are balancing it with sports and other academic interests, and you have all these people together on a team, and they need to figure out how to make this thing happen. And there's room for some people to take leadership roles. There's a chance for people to learn how to collaborate, how to be patient, how to be flexible with each other. And I think that's one of the most important things about the whole process to me.
They really need each other.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
And it's important to learn. In a world of soloists, it's important to learn when you need to be part of an ensemble.
When I'm sure we all hope that we're inspiring students to have a lifelong love of music, whether they perform it, whether they listen to it in whatever capacity, just a lifelong love of music. And I know we see that in our alumni. I mentioned that like Ian Temkin was a flute player here at Viewpoint, continued to play into college. His college band director emailed me saying, thank you for whatever you did to inspire Ian to love music so much. And that meant so much to me. It was like, wow, you know, you don't think of that. And then all the way to like the Charlie Pollard, who is now at Colburn getting his master's degree in tuba performance. And I'm sure we've had string students do the same kind of thing. So we have students who are either they just love music and are going to continue performing, or they're going to perform as their career.
That's the thing. We are not only, or we are not intentionally a pre-professional music academy. We're a comprehensive college preparatory school. And in the same way, on that day of Arts Fest, where you have a student who's in 8 performances in the day, you might also have a student who's coming right off of, I don't know, whatever team they're on that day, right?
Absolutely.
Or the night before.
Sure.
Or whatever whatever other arts they're doing. You know, students who are in instrumental music or also in theater. You know, our students here can do music and other pursuits. And that translates to when they leave here too, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. Many of them will continue to play in college. And beyond college, you know, they're community orchestras. I've had students participate in community orchestras and students who are professional musicians. And then the students who just love music, who become entertainment lawyers. Well, if they're doing entertainment for musicians, they can speak that language better than someone who's never touched an instrument.
It's so true. And of course, culture thrives when we're educating the next generation of audiences.
Yes.
And we're living in Los Angeles, which has a great music scene of all kinds. And I often think we're doing our part to generate that next generation of audiences. Anything you've learned from our alumni that, you know, would tell us something about our music program? You mentioned Ian, you mentioned Charlie.
I've had alumni come back and say, I didn't realize how much I learned. You know, especially when someone has the same teacher for many, many years in a row. The kids don't come into class thinking they're learning. They're just learning maybe new pieces. But the scaffolding that happens with the learning, they don't necessarily see all that, especially as they're younger.
Yeah. I would think of a student that Kim and I had who later went to USC, where he studied music production. And when he was with us, he played a lot of trombone. I had him playing drum set in jazz one year. But to see where his music life has gone since he graduated is a good reminder that they're going to take whatever we show them and develop it in their own direction. And so you may get to teach somebody trombone for 4 years, and it means a lot to them. It doesn't mean that they're going to turn into a trombone player in the mold that we create over here, but there's all kinds of things they could be picking up from what you're throwing down that they'll carry with them as they find their own path. I think about that a lot when in improvisation and jazz, it can be very music theory heavy, and I have some students that are really great musicians and they don't connect with that, and they haven't really made a goal of digesting all that theory, but say they have like a great ear. And so this student, when she was deciding that she wanted to improvise a solo on this one tune, it had so much harmonic stuff going on. The process of getting her to digest all that harmony would have been like a separate class that she had to take. But she had a great ear. So she said, I just listened to the recording and I started singing what I wanted the trumpet to do. And then I tried to write down the notes I was singing. And then she brought that to me during an eye block. And we just edited a little bit and made sure that she was writing what she was singing accurately. and then what she was singing fit the harmony. And I realized like, oh, like I don't know what I'm teaching you right now, but you're figuring something out. You're developing your own way of creating something. And I'm here to like make sure that you're successful within reason on this concert with what we're doing. And I think that kind of flexibility is really important.
What an incredible journey. When you were the age of your students, did you think you'd be doing what you're doing now?
That's a very good question. That was a long time ago. I don't know that I know that I originally was just going to go straight through and get my doctorate and teach college. And after my master's, I thought, I want to do something different. And so ended up teaching, and I'm here doing this. And I would have never imagined I'd like teaching middle school, and I do. And it's really fun. It's fun to watch them when the light bulb goes off, when they finally get it. But I'm not sure if I knew I wanted to do music. I just didn't know in what way.
I originally wanted to be a performer, and my parents said, well, you need to do it with something, because they wanted me to be able to support myself. And I just thought, oh, I'll do education, and started taking education classes in college and thought, oh, I actually really like this. Did my master's in performance, and while I was doing that, really realized this is not what I want to do. I enjoy performing. I like performing, somewhat, but I didn't want to do it as my career. I love working with the students. I love the light bulb moments with the students. Especially students who struggle. I like to see them figure things out. And make the progress, even though it might be slower than some other students. But the ones that are really working, those are the most fun to work with. I also like the freedom of, I get to choose the repertoire. That would have been a real challenge for me in an orchestra. In an orchestra, you don't have the freedom. You're told this is what you're playing and this is where you're sitting. And there's really no room for growth beyond that. And so I feel like there's a lot more challenges as a music educator.
It sounds like you should be the conductor. And Greg, how about you?
Yeah, I think I got my first glimmer that teaching was something that I really enjoyed when I was in college. Like Kristin, I think I was, as a young person, I was like very focused on the performance side of things. And then by the time I finished grad school and I was living in LA, like mid-20s, it became clear that, at least in some way, just to make a freelance life work, performing, recording, and teaching were all going to have to be balanced. And so, like right away, I was kind of doing all of those things. And I found that as I got older and more experienced, I was finding more meaning and enjoying that teaching work more and more and more. And sort of what Kristin said about when you're the teacher in a classroom, you're kind of the boss in a certain way. And I mean, I got to a certain point in freelancing where, you're going to this recording session or you're going on this little tour and you're like, okay, I'm doing what I said I wanted to do when I was like 19, but I'm not having a good time. And when you're working with students, you get to set the tone the way you want to. So it gets to be collegiate in the way that I think is really important. I get to maintain a standard of professionalism that I didn't always get to experience freelancing in the outside world. And and like the older I get, the more I just enjoy that aspect of working with young people and helping them grow and just being a good adult for them.
That's great. I like in our other arts disciplines too. Making a life in music can involve performing as well as teaching, as well as like other ways of expressing the art, and we're the beneficiaries of that. Our students are the beneficiaries of that. A speed round question: what was your first instrument and what age?
Clarinet in 6th grade.
Okay.
Clarinet in 4th grade.
Okay.
Piano in 2nd grade.
Oh, I played violin in 4th grade. Yeah, and then clarinet in 6th grade, actually. So
too many buttons. I told my band teacher that there was too many buttons on the clarinet. It made me anxious, and that's when she gave me a trumpet. Because it only had 3.
I actually wanted to play the trumpet in 6th grade, but they wouldn't let me because my sister had already taught me to play the clarinet, so they made me play the clarinet. And I still do.
And I wanted to play the saxophone, but when we went to the music store, my mom picked the clarinet, actually.
Yeah.
So I always bond with our clarinetists for that reason. I did grow to love it. Before we wrap, I want to take a moment as we're thinking about teachers and teaching to remember a former employee, teacher and leader who passed away last week, Margaret Bowles. For 16 years, she reinvigorated our school's curriculum and strengthened our commitment to teaching rich cultural traditions. And it's been said that she's the reason we have the music department that we have today. Kristin, how would you describe Margaret's legacy at Viewpoint?
Well, she is the grandmother of the music department, as she herself named. She named herself. When I interviewed here, I saw the schedule, and my first thought was, well, I get to see the kids as much as a math teacher sees them or an English teacher. This is a program that values music, and this is a place where I can grow a program. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because Margaret did the scheduling. And she is the person that made sure that the music department was valued as much as the English department or, all the other departments. Margaret was a little scary. She was the person that would come into your classroom, and if she was your observer, you would be scared. She was going to point out something that you could probably do better. After the observation, she would say, "Why'd you do this?" And you better have an answer for her. At the same time, she didn't do this just to scare us. She did it because she wanted the kids to have the best experience possible. And it really gave me a lot of respect for her. And she really, I don't think she meant to be scary. She really just wanted us to do our best and to push us. And the students are the ones that benefited from that. Margaret and I became friends really after she retired. She lived in my neighborhood, and because she was very active in music, she was a very good flutist, we would get together to play duets. A couple times we played together in the Topanga Symphony, and the rehearsals were at night, so I would pick her up and drive her up there. Sometimes she had extra tickets to the LA Phil. So our connections really developed through music. And then, as we'd go to the LA Phil, we would talk. And, over the years, we became friends. During the pandemic, she came to my house to swim because other places where she was swimming weren't available to her anymore. So she really became a friend after she retired. But she gave so much to this school. She really wanted us to be the best possible. She continued coming to concerts, and she loved seeing how the program had flourished throughout the years.
I know she retired in 2010, I believe, which is 5 years before I started. And I've said, reflecting on her legacy here, that I have felt, first of all, I've heard from our colleagues about the impact she's had. And as a school leader, I can see that impact even years after her retirement. It's really beautiful. We say and believe that we're a people-first organization, that the thing that matters the most is you, our teachers, our team, and it's great to honor her legacy as we think about the impact that a teacher has, that a leader has. In the same way with an individual student, you don't always see it in the moment, and I think the same thing's true with a leader. Well, our deepest sympathies go out to Margaret's family and friends and to our Viewpoint community. As we work together for a proud future for Viewpoint and world-ready education, we're developing graduates who are creative and inspired leaders. We've talked about that today, and that really does honor her life's work and legacy. Yeah. Well, the goal of this conversation was to give our listeners a deeper understanding of what is going on in the weeks and months before we see that concert, and then what's going on behind the music, underneath the music. Any final comments or thoughts you want to share?
it's just wonderful to work at a school where music is so supported
Yes.
and valued. And where it's treated as part of the curriculum and then not as an afterthought. And I think that really sets us apart from other schools in the area. And everyone is welcome into our program. You don't
really true.
You don't need to play at a certain level. Now, at some point, you do need to be able to play your instrument, or you can't. You can't be a beginner in the upper school ensembles because we do have expectations. But there's so many avenues to get there.
Right. Yeah. And I agree with that. I think that having the support that we have enables us to have the program that we have. And that did start with Margaret. I remember sitting with her and trying to figure out a particularly difficult fifth grade schedule. And just the way her mind would work was pretty impressive. And but those are the things, that kind of support is why we have the program that we have.
Wow. It's interesting, those choices that you make, that we commit to every fifth grader midway through their journey through the grades. Every one of them having an instrument. That puts a stake in the ground, and it creates a problem you have to solve, because I actually know that fifth grade schedule is perennially a problem.
Yes.
But it's a commitment that we make, and it makes us who we are as a school, and then we all get to benefit. It's funny. I've been to enough of your concerts and heard you thank the parents, honor the students, and then remind them, practice, practice, practice. I thought you would say that. That
was going to be what I was going to chip in.
It really does make a difference. Well, I am so honored to work with you every day, and to our audience listening in, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I want to thank the three of you for taking the time to talk about our music programs at the school. We value the arts. They are worth it every day as we prepare young people for their extraordinary futures. This is On Point, Behind the Curtain, with our instrumental music teachers. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
On Point is produced by Viewpoint School, an independent school in Calabasas, California, serving students in grades TK through 12. You also can find the On Point podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Viewpoint School channel on YouTube, and at viewpoint.org/onpoint.